What's up guys, Django Fett here to talk about Annihilation. This is actually my second video already. The first video I posted was my review, so if you want to check that out, see what I have to say about the movie, I will put a link in the description down below. So in this video, I actually want to talk about why Annihilation is pretty much a failure. And I'm not saying it's a bad movie by any means, but I want to go over this a little bit more by talking about some articles, looking at the opening box office numbers, as well as the reviews and people's opinions on the movie itself. So let's first go over this article. Annihilation on Netflix. Moviegoers need to take responsibility for Paramount's controversial deal. Okay. So Paramount opened Alex Garland's Annihilation in 2012 theaters in the United States, giving domestic moviegoers the chance to see the science fiction thriller on the big screen. Unfortunately, not many of them did. The movie barely grossed a quarter of its budget on opening weekend, but still more audiences saw Annihilation in North American theaters than the number who will see it elsewhere. 0. Paramount has been at the center of backlash since December. After it was confirmed that the studio had sold the film's international rights to Netflix, Annihilation will be skipping the theatrical releases and heading straight to streaming the territories outside of the US, Canada, and China, including in Garland's own United Kingdom. Fans have particularly been in an uproar over the decision, but they're missing the point. Annihilation was never going to be an easy sell, and Paramount's decision to put the film out in the first place was a near radical maneuver for a studio of its size. Search the keywords Annihilation and Netflix on social media, and you'll see endless complaints criticizing Paramount for dumping the film on the streaming platform and robbing the fans to see it in theaters. The outcry is understandable and even warranted. A lot of what makes Annihilation so incredible is enhanced by the big screen experience, especially its score and sound design. Anyone who has seen Annihilation in the US will tell you that watching it on Netflix just won't be the same, but while anger from moviegoers is deserved, anger at Paramount is not. Paramount reportedly came to the Netflix deal after testing screenings, made producer David Ellison nervous about the film's box office prospects. Reports mentioned that he was nervous the film was too complicated and too intellectual to connect with mainstream audiences. As right as Ellison may be, he definitely is right, as anyone who saw the film can attest, Garland and producer Scott Rudin maintained final cut privileges and refused to take his notes to change the third act. I really think Garland and Scott Rudin should have listened to David Ellison. They should have dumbed the movie down or not made it too intellectual, because I feel like it was way too complicated towards the end and it just got over my head. And when it tried to be smart, it ended up being more cheesy than anything else, just in my opinion. The Ellison-Rudin riff presented Paramount with two potential futures for Annihilation: tamper with Garland's vision to make the movie accessible for mainstream audiences, or preserve Garland's vision and find a way to minimize the financial risk of releasing an incredibly challenging studio film. The Netflix deal was an easy solution to the latter. Many angry fans may not realize the deal was made following one of the worst financial years in Paramount's history. Nearly every Paramount release in 2017 was a financial loss, from Ghost in the Shell to Baywatch, understandable, Transformers: The Last Night, and Suburbicon. The Last Night was the studio's top grosser in the US, but it made a franchise low with $130 million. Along with Daddy's Home 2, it was only Paramount's film to break $100 million domestically. Paramount suffered a similar fate in 2016 with few hits outside of Arrival, Fences, and 10 Cloverfield Lane. The studio's top 2016 grosser, Star Trek Beyond, was also a franchise low in the US with under $58 million. In the case of Annihilation, the box office failures of Mother and Downsizing had to have made a lot of executives even more scared. Mother taped out at $17 million domestically, opposite a $30 million budget. Downsizing couldn't even pass $25 million in the US despite a $68 million budget. And to be fair, Paramount's marketing for Downsizing was virtually non-existent, but it's not like the studio was going to pump even more money into the film after those disastrous Mother results. One big takeaway: studio-wide releases for these weirder Archer driven movies is not ideal. They're the kind of movies that could benefit more from a limited release and slow building word of mouth. But Paramount shouldn't be slammed for trying. Hollywood is no longer the place where Darren Aronofsky can easily make $30 million movies and open in 2,000 something theaters nationwide. The fact Paramount committed to doing so worthy of celebration. If the movie had opened in fewer markets and faced bad word of mouth, it would have faced an uphill battle expanding nationwide. Instead, the studio forced into Annihilation into many more before the backlash started. And then lastly, the key takeaway here is a self-reflective one. Audiences around the world should be mad they have to watch Annihilation on Netflix, but they should be more upset with their fellow moviegoers than with Paramount. If viewers are going to demand a studio release a film like Annihilation in theaters, then they're going to have to show studios that films of similar makeup are not financial risks. Hollywood is a reactionary business, so if no one is going to show up to see the mother of the world, then studios are going to stop making chances on them, or at least find a way to limit the financial risks of releasing them. Hello, Netflix. So, I actually kind of agree with this in a way. Most of it I pretty much agree with, except the Netflix part. I don't think it's a good idea just to put it on Netflix now, because I feel like movies that are going into Netflix are they're just ending up being garbage. I mean, look at fucking Cloverfield Paradox. That one was a bomb. I mean, that movie, if it went in theaters, it would have bombed hard, but on Netflix, it was a safer bet. A lot of people watched it, and I bet you the numbers are pretty high, but they're not happy about the film at the same time. Yes, they went and saw it on Netflix, and it's a sort of a safer bet, but are you really making your money back compared to actually selling it in theaters? I don't know about that. I still have to do a lot more research into that, see the numbers, and how Netflix works into the viewership and how studios actually make money. That actually requires a lot of in-depth research. Not only do studios put money into putting their movies in different theaters out there for a limited or, a quite extended release, but they also put money towards marketing, which is an additional cost, which is different from the even budget. So those numbers are gonna rack up quite a lot, and studios that don't even make their money towards that, or even make beyond that point, they're not gonna be happy with the end result. So they're not even gonna risk putting that movie out there. So I think in a way, yeah, it's right, put it on Netflix, but at the same time, Netflix nowadays is viewed in a bad light. Your movie is not good enough to put out in the theaters, so you're gonna put it on Netflix. So in that way, it's kind of a negative connotation that I think the writer didn't even consider. Now, if we look at the box office numbers for the opening weekend, and compared to the production budget, it's actually $55 million. This one is $40 million, but it's actually $55 million. That doesn't even factor into the marketing costs. This is just the domestic. For the opening weekend, it made over $11 million. That's not a particularly good number to see. I think studios were expecting to see 20 million, 30 million even. But there is also a problem with that too, because if you look at the movies right now, this movie is competing with quite a few big movies, and especially one big one right now. I think it's the elephant in the room right now. And that is Black Panther. Black Panther in its opening weekend made $240 million. $240 million. While the second one made $23 million, Peter Rabbit, and I think that was the opening weekend as well. $240 million. A Marvel film. That's pretty crazy. And not surprising at the same time. It's a Marvel film. There are always going to be a lot of people going out to see that, including myself. And then we look at the second weekend grossing numbers, and we look at Black Panther again. 111 million. So a 100 million drop off, but still 111 million. This movie has already made its budget in its first opening weekend. And then the second weekend just helps with that. 111 million. And then we have the second one. The opening is Game Night. which is 17 million, which is a gigantic drop-off. Peter Rabbit at number 3, 12 million. And then Annihilation at number 4 with 11 million. And then we have close behind, actually not too close, but 50 Shades Freed, 7 million. And then number 6, Jumanji. This movie came out in December, and it's still being shown. It made 5 million. I mean, it shows right there, people don't really want to go see really artsy films. Annihilation is being beat by a comedy film, and then an animated film, which doesn't look particularly good. 11 million. That's the opening box office number. And I cannot imagine what Annihilation's going to be like for the next weekend and the week after that. And I think it's going to be a steep decline, really hard to even make that budget because of the reviews. So let me get into the reviews. Let's start with Rotten Tomatoes, be it a problematic site at the same time, and Metacritic. But Annihilation. It first started off with a 93%. Now it is 86% for the critics out there. Audience score, however, is pretty drastic at 65%. So they liked it. But 65% compared to 86% is a pretty steep decline. So let me get into some of these reviews. I'm not going to read these, but as you can see, 4, 3, that's not bad so far, but half, I mean, I don't know about that. 3.5, 4, 1, 3s, 2.5s, 3s. I agree with the 3. 2.5, 2, 2.5, 1/2. Audiences are not liking this movie. So that right there is not a good sign, and fuck Chris Stuckman, he's totally wrong. 86% to 65%. And it's actually declined with critics too. It was 93%, and it's going down as well. Not necessarily a good sign. Then we look at Metacritic. I know Metacritic, Rotten Tomatoes are not the best sites, but people rely on these sites. People look into them. So we look at the Metacritic score of 80, which is not bad, and then 7.4. So still pretty good, but not the best of ratings. 7, 6s, 4s, 0. I don't know about that. These are not the most reliable of sites, especially with critic scores. But people are not liking it. I mean, barely liking it. And then I want to just show you guys the numbers for Ex Machina, just in comparison's sake. Because I really love that movie. Didn't really enjoy this movie. But just in comparison's sake, I just wanted to compare Ex Machina. Ex Machina, critics, 92%. And then, audience score of 86%. Pretty damn good. It made its money. It made double its money in the in theaters. Pretty good. 92% and 86%. Then we look at Metacritic. 78 and 7.9. Pretty good difference. And right on the ball. So people, yes, Ex Machina is sort of the artsy movie, but it had a good balance. It wasn't too smart where it went over your head, and it wasn't too dumbed down at the same time. It had a good balance, and it was a really enjoyable film. Annihilation is kind of the opposite. And you can see it right here in the scores. The scores are pretty evident of the film overall. And this movie didn't do bad because it had women. I'm not going to even go down that route. It just wasn't marketed well at all. I did not see any marketing. Barely any. On Facebook, but yeah, Facebook. But in theaters and seeing in other movies, or even in TV commercials, absolutely nothing. Black Panther was, taking the whole spotlight because of how good that movie was. But I think word of mouth is probably even more stronger than, scores out there. I think word of mouth is becoming more stronger than ever because people are saying, oh, I recommend this movie or don't recommend it. And from word of mouth alone, with Black Panther or with Annihilation, the movie has dropped off. I think with word of mouth, with Ex Machina, people have really wanted to go out and see this movie and really enjoyed it. Annihilation is the opposite, and it had a budget of 55 million, which is quite a lot for an indie film. Be it a small budget, it did not do very well. Mother, even, which was a budget of 30 million, did not do very well at all either. Very artsy film. And plus, you know, main audience members don't want to see these types of films. They'd rather see big movies like Black Panther or even Game Night, you know, over Annihilation. Be it a new concept, they'd rather see these big movies. And they feel rather safe watching Black Panther, a Marvel film which everybody has really enjoyed. Go out and see this. It's a safer bet. And if you look at the release schedule, what it's competing against, Death Wish, Red Sparrow, for the next couple weeks, Gringo, Strangers, A Wrinkle in Time, which I think will make quite a lot, Tomb Raider. Yeah, there's gonna be a steep decline quite a lot with this movie, but we'll see how the viewership goes with the Netflix numbers. I'm really curious what the numbers will be, the viewership. I think a lot of people will see it, but not like it as much. So I think it will be much more akin to the reviewer's score, or the audience score, I should say. And just to be honest, I think Annihilation was kind of dead on arrival when competing with Black Panther. Why would you even put your movie next to Black Panther is kind of suicide. Any Marvel movie, don't even do it. Any type of indie film, just don't do it. So I thought that was kind of bad on Paramount's part at the same time. Even put this movie a week before, or even 2 weeks before Black Panther, that would have been good. It was set to fail. It was set to fail right there. And it's a damn shame, because we need more indie films, good indie films. This one was quite not up there, but it would have given people to really appreciate and talk about some more, and have more of these indie films. So I want more indie films. I want fresh and new ideas coming from Hollywood. And the fact that it's going to Netflix as well, not a really good decision making, I would say. I'm not really a big fan of that. But if it's gonna garner more views and possibly more money, then go for it. So that was my thing on Annihilation. Let me know what you think of Annihilation if you've seen it in the comment section below. Check out my review to see my thoughts. I don't go into spoilers. It's all non-spoilers. But please be sure to like this video, comment down below, subscribe to my channel, Django Fett, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.